What is the significance of aspect, and are aspects connected with desires? That was the question asked a few days ago. Aspects has no direct connection with desire, but indirect connection. Aspect is a unique recipe that is born out of your desire. This desire is Rahu. This desire then gives birth to a unique recipe called quality. In Indian context, we address it as guna. A certain soul comes with a desire to have lots of sexual pleasures, lots of communion with beautiful women. All kinds of luxuries and pleasures of bed is what such a soul desires. And so one day he is born with exactly such aspects that produce results, that is, qualities which manifest into bed pleasures and many luxuries and many comforts. Such a man is always a favorite of the opposite sex, meaning woman, because he has all those things that a woman longs for. So you see, this is how the desire gives birth to aspects that in turn give birth to a certain quality, that is guna, and it is this guna that goes on shaping the course of your destiny. It is all connected, it is all interlinked, it is all linked in. Now, such a guna is called Rajoguna, pleasure seeking quality. Always remember, it is your desire that leads you to birth. But to satisfy the desires, you need to have the qualities. For example, if you want to be a singer, you need to have the qualities that can make you a successful singer. These qualities are signified by the aspects that form in your birth chart. Once it happened, there was a young man. He must be like me. He loved the master and he was a poor farmer. He used to wash the clothes of the master, prepare food for him, and serve the compassionate divine master in all possible ways. But one day it happened so that the farmer was serving the master when suddenly there was a lot of noise of firecrackers, and so he got up to see what was happening. The whole atmosphere was filled with the smoke of the firecrackers. But after a while, he could see the whole fleet of the king with elephants and horses and the whole royal proceedings. And at that moment, that very moment, a thought, an intense desire was born in his mind, the desire to become king, the desire to experience royal life of the palace. And it was such an intense desire that he could not control his thoughts. He said to the divine master, "Master, how beautiful is the life of the king, so royal and so regal. I would also like to become the king." The divine master smiled and said, "Bhola," that was his name. "Bhola, you have for the first time expressed your desire. Next life, you will be born as a king. I bless you." Bhola became happy, but soon he realized his mistake. He started crying. He started weeping like a small innocent child. He said, "Master, but then I will have to go far away from you. Master, I don't want to be the king. I want to be with you. Please, Master, please. He burst out in tears and fell upon the feet of the compassionate, benevolent Master. The Master raised him up, hugged him, and said, Bhola, I have granted your wish. Now there is no going back. You will be born in a royal family and you will rule for 12 years. Bhola said, But then, Master, how will I meet you? I cannot imagine my next life without your omnipresence. The Divine Master smiled again and said, You will come back to me. Next life you will come in search of me. How long can a son stay away from the mother? How long can river stay away from the sea? So don't worry much. Remember to rule with consciousness. The words of the Master never fail. It always come true. And so, in the next birth, the young farmer, Bhola, was born in a royal family. He grew up as a sultan and had many pleasures of the bed. Many beautiful maids and women and all pleasures were at his feet, and life was flowing smoothly when one day the sultan fell sick. And then the whole chase began. The best hakim and best healers were called to the royal court, but no luck. And the chief minister became tensed because the sultan was not recovering in spite of providing the best healers and hakims and doctors. Then someone said to the minister, A great Sufi saint has arrived in our capital, but he seemed to be a strange person. He never sleeps at night and never eats any food, and yet he is always found in his bliss, in his joy. I think we should take the sultan to him. He seemed to be a man of miracle. The minister was an intelligent man. He could feel, but still, to ensure that the man was right, he goes to see the Sufi saint. And the moment he reached, he could see from the distance a glimpse of the Sufi saint dressed in shimmering green. And even from distance, he could sense that this man is something. A certain fragrance, a certain bliss, a certain aura. The minister could not control himself. Even though he was observing from a distance, he could feel so much of divinity that he started crying. He wanted to go ahead and meet the Sufi saint, but he thought to first share his feelings with the sultan. And so he goes back to the palace. The sultan is still on his bed, sick and suffering. The minister shares his feelings with the sultan, and the sultan is touched. The next day, the royal members of the palace accompany the sultan, and they all reach to the place where the Sufi saint had been staying. He was seated beneath a tree, and the sultan himself got down from his royal elephant and walked towards the Sufi saint. And the moment the sultan touched the feet of the Sufi saint, the master looked into his eyes and said, Bhola, just the name, Bhola. And something moved deeply within the sultan's heart. Tears started rolling from his eyes. He could now remember his last birth. Bhola. Yes, that was my name. And I was a poor farmer, and this is my master, whom I had left to satisfy my desires. Bhola burst into tears. Not a single word was spoken, and yet the whole eternity, the whole past birth was before him. He simply kept weeping like a small child. The master, the Sufi saint, smiled and said, Bhola, you haven't changed a bit. You remain just the way you had always been, a man of heart, an innocent child. The Sultan said, How could I thank you? How could I express my gratitude towards you, even if I write a whole book with my blood in your praise? Still, it will be short to express my love towards you, O Master. And I know you came all the way here in the capital just for me, for my sake. Please accept my apology for being late. The master said, Bhola, it is always better to be late than to be never. Now take this piece of sandalwood with you and apply its powder on your forehead for 3 consecutive days, and then you shall be healed. The royal family was observing all of this, and they too realized the significance of the divine master. They all bowed before him, and then the time to go back came. And the Sultan could not control himself. He was not willing to return to his royal palace. He said, Master, I will live with you. I will serve you day and night, just the way I was serving you in my past life. The master smiled and said, Now you are coming back to where you had started from. Now this is the new desire that you have expressed. When you were with me, you had the desire to become king. And now that you have become the king, you now want to come back to me. The circle is now complete. You are back home. The Sultan got the message. He bowed before the master, and the master said, Still you have certain responsibilities. Remember, you are now a king, and so the responsibility of your kingdom is on your shoulders. So first return to the palace, choose your successor, and once you are free from all your responsibilities, you can join me back. The Sultan got the message. He said, But master, please don't go away from here. The master said, Where will I go? I am always here. You go now. Your people are waiting in the hot sun. You should not make them wait. And so, the Sultan returns, but as a totally changed man, as a totally transformed man that the world had ever known. He became prayerful, he built many mosques and also temples. And now in his kingdom, Hindu and Muslim, both communities started living with harmony and love. His kingdom became a heaven for all communities from all over the world. Such was the miracle of the master. And after a few years, the Sultan renounced everything and joined the compassionate master. And then they left the kingdom, never to be seen again. Nobody knew where they went, but people always fondly remembered them. This is how desires manifest into quality. This quality is derived through aspects. The young poor farmer had an intense desire to become the king. And since his karmic quality was too good, the master granted his wish. And then the same young poor farmer takes birth in the royal family and becomes the sultan. This is how the journey of birth and rebirth is. A balance, balancing the level of your desire and your karma. The birth is decided, the birth manifests in a specific family that matches the level of your desire and karmic quality. It is the desire that gives birth to qualities, and it is the qualities that gives birth to karma. And eventually, it is your karma that gives birth to your destiny. Desire, quality, karma, destiny. That is the whole process. Through the desire, the quality is born. Through the quality, the karma is executed. And the way the karma is executed, the quality of karma is what decides your destiny. So, at the root is the desire, and the root is Rahu. Desire is Rahu. And so, if you want to raise the quality of your life, then you first have to focus on transforming your desires to higher level. Desire has not to be destroyed. It has to be purified. Desire has not to be dropped. It has to be transformed. Your very being is desire. To be against it is to be against yourself and against all. The same passion that you have within you, the same passion that provides you with intense sexual drive, this same passion, just imagine if this same passion is transformed, if it's diverted towards self-realization, towards meditation, towards God, then you can attain that which never leaves you but always remains with you. And that is the eternal bliss. But common man's passion is towards experiencing sexual pleasures. And then when the body becomes old, when he crosses the age of 60, he starts remembering God. What is the use? Life is already slipping out of his hand. He is already close to his deathbed. Whole life was spent to attain pleasures of body. Now the time is running out. Even if he wants to meditate, he cannot. The body won't cooperate. It has become old. It cannot be of much help. Aspects are born out of desires. A yogi's birth chart may have aspects that are totally different than that of a typical businessman. The quality of desires when it comes to a real yogi is of the beyond, the higher altitudes than that of a businessman. Many insightful businessmen have a subtle desire to become a yogi, and it has always been the case that even though they have this subtle desire, they cannot, because they remain trapped in their past karmic cycle, which in turn was the result of their lower desires. And this is how millions of men and women remain trapped. They may appear as the emperor, but the real emperor is one who has transformed his desires to the higher altitudes and then a time comes in his life when he moves from desires to desirelessness state. And that is the stage of Buddha, the enlightened master. The real emperor is not the one who is caught up with luxuries and power and sex and money. The real emperor is the one who has moved beyond this fake gold and attained the real gold, the enlightenment. There are only two types of people in the world, the beggars and the emperors. Those who live in desires are beggars. Those who live in completion of silence, peace, and love are the emperors. Once it happened. I was traveling alone through the Sahyadri mountains, and suddenly I came across a great yogi, and I bowed before him. It was a great moment. I still remember his words. He had said, "Now there are no planets in my horoscope." How deep are these words? Only a meditative man could understand, could relate, could resonate with these words. When there are no desires left, where is the question of any quality? He has entered into the Nirgun stage, where there is no Rajogun, no Tamas Gun, no Satvik Gun, but Nirgun Nirakar. How beautiful is this stage! I prostrate before that great yogi whom I had met accidentally. Accidents are beautiful. Whatever happens accidentally is something that is truly beautiful. Neem Karoli Baba always used to say that it happens often that you are set on your journey in the search of a certain thing, but you end up getting something else, which is far more beautiful than what you had planned for. Neem Karoli Baba says, often one goes for one thing and finds another. How beautiful are these words, and how true. Great things are always accidental. Beautiful things happen by accident. Embrace all that happens accidentally in your life. The accidental moments are the real turning moments of life. Enlightenment is also accidental. If you are seeking to attain enlightenment, it may never happen, because it happens only when you never had planned for, but you simply kept walking in His love, in His devotion, the benevolent Master. Just because Buddha had a sweet rice milk pudding before he attained enlightenment, all Buddhist monks follow the same diet before meditating, because they think by eating sweet rice milk like Buddha, they too can attain enlightenment someday, sometime, and somewhere. So people just follow what they see. They cannot feel what Buddha felt. They simply remain on the circumference, living a shallow life filled with all sorts of material desires. One of the greatest astrologer that I personally love is Sri Yukteswar Giri, the divine master who wrote one of the most enlightening books, The Holy Science. But he was not an astrologer of the type that you all may know of. He was a great mystic, a great divine master, and astrology was just a small part of his vast ocean of wisdom. I prostrate before His Holiness Yukteswar Giri, the master of the much famed Paramahansa Yogananda. And a beautiful quote of his is what I remember at this moment. The master says, "A child is born on that day and at that hour when the celestial rays are in mathematical harmony with his individual karma. His horoscope is a challenging portrait revealing his unalterable past and its probable future result. But the natal chart can be rightly interpreted only by men of initiative wisdom, and these are few. Intellectualism can help you to go from A to Z. But then the doors close. Then you are locked up. Then you are stuck. Intellectualism is logic, your head, and head cannot go beyond. It knows calculation, it is good in mathematics, but people tend to forget the fact that astrology is not mathematics. Astrology is not logic. Astrology is the light of consciousness. That is why in the ancient days it was only the sage, the muni, the sadhu, the yogi who were well versed in astrology. Because lifestyle is very important. Your own way of living is very important. In Hindi, we address this in one word, acharan, meaning how you perform your daily routine, the purity, the cleanliness, the prayerfulness, and the devotion and the love towards God, towards the Master. Always remember, wisdom comes from within and not from outside. And I would rather go a step ahead and say that yes, wisdom comes from within, but it comes only through the benevolent Divine Master, His love, His compassion, His grace. The Divine Master Guru Nanak says, "Let no man in the world live in delusion. Without a Guru, no one can cross over." Love has to be there, unconditional love. Devotion is the higher love. Devotion is love overflowing. It is only when you do something with devotion that you can attain success. Remember this. This is of great significance. If your path is through devotion, you will experience the divine, the beloved. Devotees enjoy things more because they make the truth beautiful. They turn the truth into their beloved. Truth is no longer a mathematical calculation. Truth becomes steeped in love. Aspects is quality. You should ask yourself what kind of quality you have within you. Are you a devoted man, a devoted woman, or you simply love to follow your logic, your head? So many such things are derived through the aspects. Aspects indeed is the perfect recipe that produces certain results in your life. These results then impact your mindset and your overall perception towards life, following which you act, that is your karma. And then this is how the reservoir of your karma goes on building. In Indian Hindu context, we address this as accumulated karma, as sanchit karma. So many such things are there, maybe one life may fall short. But the journey must continue because the beauty, the joy is in the journey and not in the destination. Someday you all must listen to my podcast on Journey is Beautiful Than Destination. Aspects are many. Let us see a few that are significant in many ways. Guru Shani conjunction or Jupiter Saturn conjunction. This is my favorite conjunction. Generally, I like people with this conjunction, and the people who have this conjunction, they too like me. It all happens by default. Then the second conjunction, Moon Ketu conjunction. This is my another favorite conjunction. I like people with this conjunction. At times they sound crazy, but then those who are insane are always found to be crazy. And yet it is only the insane who can listen and feel and see and experience that which others cannot. Another conjunction is the conjunction of Sun with Uranus. This is again my favorite conjunction. People with this conjunction are intense individualistic people. They are rebels and lovers of truth. They blend well with me and I blend well with them. It is indeed a great connection. One more conjunction that I personally like is Mercury-Venus conjunction. Although this is a very common aspect, still it brings a certain charm to that individual. It provides a good romantic chit-chat individual who likes to read a lot, all kind of subjects from sex to spirituality. These men and women are generally found in groups, networking, and generally are very sociable by nature. The other conjunction is Moon-Jupiter conjunction. These men and women are very religious by nature. If there is absolutely no spiritual angle to this conjunction, then they generally remain religious all their life. To them, religion, tradition, customs and beliefs comes first. The rest comes later. This conjunction provides one unique nature, the nature of doing good and projecting themselves as the good people, the wise people, the knowledgeable people. The negative side is that they are too much committed to doing good and many times become victim because people take undue advantage of their goodness. Also, these people often don't get the credit they deserve because they generally don't push too much to get credit for their good deeds. The other conjunction is Moon-Venus conjunction. In one word, if I have to define this conjunction, then the word is Anandi. It's a Hindi word which means joyous by nature. They are born to enjoy the many pleasures of human life, the many luxuries of human world. Sexual pleasures, luxuries of cars, bungalows, beautiful dresses, attractive furniture, basically all that is beautiful appeals to them. They are indeed the kind of men and women who always aim for the best brands, luxury brands, because luxury and pleasures of bed is what they long for and generally attain all their desires. They also have certain artistic skills like cooking, dancing, singing, and even in acting they do well. Few more conjunctions that I would like to add on is Moon-Mercury conjunction. These men and women do well in business. because they are very logical men and women. They are too much in the head. Moon Rahu conjunction. Interestingly, many men and women with this conjunction take great interest in spiritualism. They often come with many illusions. In fact, I have met men with this conjunction who started feeling as if they have become some god men. Here, Rahu makes their mind totally chaotic. They are not bad men or women, they are just lost in this concrete jungle. But the positive side of this conjunction is that these men and women make great media persons, great journalists, great filmmakers, because this conjunction leads one to focus more on the outside. And when the whole focus is on the outside, you can become a good media person, good journalist, a good actor or filmmaker. These men and women also have to deal with black magic. Either they themselves learn black magic or they become victim of black magic. But black magic in some way or the other always engulfs them, and this is sure shot reality in maximum men and women with this conjunction, that is Moon Rahu conjunction. Sun Jupiter conjunction is also a good conjunction. They generally are found in big social circle of scholars and pandits. Respectability is what these people crave for, and so these people are exact contrast to people having Sun Uranus conjunction. Sun Uranus conjunction men are not behind respectability. They simply live by being themselves. For them, individuality is important over respectability. But Sun Jupiter conjunction men and women, they don't understand anything of this sort. Their whole focus is on gaining more and more respectability, and eventually they also gain what they long for. They become respectable men and women of the society. There are many more aspects, but for today, this is enough. Always remember, this life's aspects are inborn qualities within you, your own karmic fruits. If you don't like these fruits of your own desires, then come you all and start meditating. Start learning the language of the Buddha, the language of silence, the language of love, the language of letting go, the language of the heart. Tears of joy are the language of the heart. When tears flow through your eyes, when you can cry, you can experience God. You can experience love. Only a man who can cry out of joy, out of love, out of devotion, only such a man, such a woman is the most beautiful person on this planet. God comes in search of such a person. The Master comes in search of such a person, and then you don't have to go to the Himalayas. The Himalayas would come in search of you. I always insist that no matter how bad your aspects are, you can always start from zero. You can always get up and start moving towards the light of consciousness, Krishna consciousness, God consciousness. You must worship the self in Krishna and not Krishna as Krishna, says Swami Vivekananda. The larger question that you should ask yourself is, are you willing to? If your answer is yes, then there is a better tomorrow waiting for you. All you have to do is to start living your life with more and more awareness. By letting go, by forgiving, you can do it. It will be difficult in the beginning, but slowly, you will start coming back to your source, back to home. Always remember there is only one home, and that is not on the outside but very much within you. Start meditating, start turning inward, and come back home. There is no home unless we find it in ourselves. The whole purpose of this human life is to find your home, and you can find it only when you start turning inward. Meditate every day and remember you are not alone.